I run a currently, it's a 6-day split. It's a modified pull, push, legs. Basically, yeah, so pull, push, legs. It's in that order. I could say push, pull, legs, but I just want to get the correct order. So it's pull, then push, then legs. And it is a floating split, which is a type of asynchronous split. A floating split means you have, let's say, 6 sessions to hit in a microcycle. And I don't mean week, I mean microcycle. Almost always week and microcycle mean the same thing, but not always. In a floating split, what you have is, in my case, it's 6 workouts, and I have 5 microcycles and then a deload through the RP Hypertrophy app, which is how I program all this. And I literally just run it through the whole app. And because I have the 6 days every microcycle, sometimes when my fatigue is well managed, when I'm not super busy traveling or working on YouTube stuff or RP app stuff or whatever, then I do 6 days in a row. And if I'm feeling really froggy and the workouts are super easy, or it's the beginning of the meso, I might even do 7 or 8 workouts in a row. No problem. And however, if I'm not recovered on time, if I need an extra day of rest and recovery, or even just an extra day of doing lower calories and doing cardio because my muscles haven't healed yet, but I can still burn some fat, I'm in a fat loss phase right now, what I do is I insert the off days as needed. So in most cases, that'll be 1 to 2 off days at the end of each half microcycle. So I'll do pull, push, legs, rest, start again, or rest again if necessary, and then go pull, push, legs, and then it's microcycle 2, aka week 2. It could be 9 days later. I I do that. But even if it's a busy schedule thing, or if it's okay, I did pull yesterday, that means push is going to be today, but my chest and triceps legitimately straight up just didn't heal from last time, then I'm just going to rest another day. So the rest days can be inserted anywhere. So this all sounds complicated, but the floating split is the following. You make a program just like you would for yourself. You train 3 days a week, you train 4 or 5, whatever. I train 6. And if you make it a floating split, you write it just the same way in the RP Hypertrophy app, except the app asks you to either label it like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or it just asks you, it default labels it. And if you don't change it, it just leaves it like this: day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. So for me, it's a 6-day program, and they're days, not days of the week. And then you just use a simple rule. If you're healed and your schedule allows for it, you train. If you're not healed and you need more days off, or your schedule is like, dude, you could train today, but it'd be a dog shit workout because you have 18 hours of filming, you have to fly to LA, blah, blah, blah. Hollywood stuff like I tend to do, meetings with Weinstein and Epstein and all the Steens. But if it's that kind of situation, then you also take an extra day off. But then when you can train, you do. When you can't, you don't. That means that folks that are super busy with careers and children and shit like that, some days, some weeks, they'll be in the gym twice, which is totally good enough for maintenance in almost all cases. Some weeks they'll be in the gym 6 times and they're crushing that shit. And on average, they'll be in the gym 4 times a week. And so the floating split gives you an unbelievable amount of power to make it into workouts when you can. There's only one caveat for the floating split, maybe 2. One is some people just like days of the week corresponding to certain things. They need the week completely prearranged, which is totally fine. It's just how people do shit. The other thing is a floating split takes an inherent deep motivation and drive to train. Because if you adopt a floating split as a beginner or early intermediate, you're not really in love, addicted to the training process yet. You take 3 days off, you know what I'm saying, Bill? Then you take 4 days off, and then you're like, do I even train? And you kind of just skip a week. So floating split doesn't say, hey, Tuesday is leg day, shut up and go. Some people need that, and for those folks, floating split's not ideal. For me, up until very recently, so I used to use a floating split back as kind of an intermediate, and it worked awesome for me. Then I got into the Monday through Friday shit, and it worked great. Just recently, for this prep that I have coming up, prepping into some summer shows, I realized I'm pretty busy with work and YouTube and all this other shit's kind of a big deal. And I don't always heal like I think I'm going to heal, especially in a fat loss phase. The shit will bite you in the ass. You'll be like, I'm supposed to heal, but I'm feeling really weak and my legs are actually still sore. This is stupid. By being more flexible and realizing that the science supports this kind of training split, and I can really quick say how, and then give you the floor, Bill, really quick. But because it's the logical thing to do, it can work really well. And here's how science supports this. It turns out, and we've known this for some time, the difference in training frequency per muscle group between training a muscle group twice, 3 times, and 4 times a week is a very small. And you would think, like, how could it possibly be small? Most times, if you're like, I do something 2x or 3x or 4x, there are going to be massive changes in how much I do shit. Like if you got, paid by the hour to do your job, if you work 2 times more. You would think, okay, I'm getting roughly 2 times more, maybe even more than that because of overtime. However, that doesn't happen in muscle growth. And what we find in the literature is that 2 versus 3 versus 4x, very subtle, very contextual, absolutely very small differences in muscle growth. And since in a fat loss phase, maintenance of muscle mass is really the goal, you get even more slack cut. You say, how is that possible? Here's how it's possible. It turns out every time you come to the gym and train, 2 things happen. One, you get a muscular protein synthesis response from that. It leads to muscle growth that session, but you're like, duh. So then you start thinking, fuck, I gotta do 2, 3, 4 more of these sessions, I get more muscle. Here's the second part. The second part is this. Every time you expose your muscles to a certain kind of working out, the sensitivity to future hypertrophy drops, and it resensitizes over a time course. And that time course is on the order of a week. So if you train 5 times a week, your chest, each workout that you do, especially after the first or second one, grows you very little muscle. Some, for sure, so it still matters, but very little additional muscle. But if you train chest twice a week, by the time you do your second workout, your chest has forgotten the stimulus so much, the sensitivity is back so high that it still grows a fuckload of muscle for you. This is true in many other things, including eating high protein meals. If you eat 9 meals per day, your body's like, I'm going to grow this much muscle. That's pretty much it. If you eat 4 meals a day, every time you eat another meal, your body's like, holy shit, protein, fellas. Hell yeah, this has been a while. Let's really get this into anabolism. So the floating split is awesome because you end up being like, okay, do I train shoulders twice a week or do I train them 4 times a week? Well, it depends on what kind of week I have. If a floating split, I make it in 4 times a week, I train shoulders twice. If I make it 6 times a week in certain conditions, I train shoulders 3 or 4 times. Is there going to be a big difference between those two? No, because if I don't train for a while, my next session is more hypertrophic because the sensitivity is, again, really high. If I train really often, the session to session to session time span is so short that the muscles are still quite resistant to hypertrophy, and then you get this overall blunting effect. So for me, the floating split is a really good answer to that problem. Concerns about like, dude, I only made it to the gym 4 times a week. Like, you get great gains. But what if I could have gone 5 times? Well, if you had a magic fucking genie pop out of the bottle and clear your schedule for you and make you recover infinitely well, great. The trend genie, that doesn't do anything for your schedule. But if you have a magic genie, great. But if you live in real life, a floating split can be fucking awesome in that regard.
Yeah.
Sorry for the long rant.
No, that's great. I think that people talk a lot about autoregulation in terms of RAR and proximity to failure, but people don't often talk about it in terms of frequency, which is what you're doing with a floating split. And I really like that because, I mean, not everyone has like a dedicated 5 hours a day to dedicate to bodybuilding.